This Passap lock is having a problem with its arrow keys, and Jack is going to help us work through it. One side is working properly, but the other is not. The early parts of the movie about cleaning and lubrication are something that nearly everybody can do for themselves. I want to be clear that as we get into really disassembling and the adjustment Jack finally makes, this is advanced stuff. It is not something I personally would undertake on my own. So if you're watching out of more than a sense of vague interest in how it all works inside, do seriously consider your skill level and whether you think you'll be able to get your lock back together on your own before undertaking this. Doing this was not releasing these, and that's what it's supposed to do. That's the cancel key. Pushing one should engage the one on that side. Pushing the other should engage the one on that side. And canceling them should disengage both. But you can see it's still not working quite right. Until I pushed it by hand, it didn't really get canceled. These are what scoop up the pushers. And the arrow keys tell the pushers when to change position. And again, this one did not really get canceled. There is no way the machine will function and do what you think you're telling it like this. At least not when using pushers. It was knitting on in CX and EX just fine because this didn't matter. So here's what we need to do. The action of the pusher scoops is at the outside of the machine and very obvious, but some of what is causing that is farther back into the mechanism. So our first try was a few drops of Croil, the creeping oil that we like, to loosen sticky parts, just in case that was all the problem was. It did seem possible because we didn't have total failure, just sluggishness. Unfortunately, it didn't help.
All right, this is to release that scoop to come down where it's going to start picking up the pushers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, notice, here's what should happen. This should pop back and catch it. See, when I push it down by hand, it actually pushes this over as it goes down.
Yes.
Okay, but that's supposed to happen when you push this lever, and this is, see how
the center
it's
button
not quite going down far
So the
enough.
truth
Watch.
is we call the center button a release button, but
it's
it's
not.
actually a release one thing and latch something else button.
This is the release button. That releases that side. This is actually the retainer button to lock them both back into place.
Well, it's because we are canceling the arrow keys that we think of it like that.
Right, and it is canceling the arrow keys, but here, this is why we took the cover off. Look what it's actually doing. You see, it's levering those latches. See the springs right there? Under this button, there's a spring. See right in there?
Mm-hmm.
See, this one's spring loaded. These are not. And it pushes them back. This is what pushes those back to
So, explain again what sluggish and needs me to clean and oil it.
All right, let's look at the one that's working, okay? It goes down, and watch right in here. See, it pushes past the latch, and the latch springs over.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now let's look at the one that isn't working. See, the latch is not,
Let's see.
it's not going down. This is not going down quite far enough.
Here, we can't see through your fingers. You
Okay.
mean this?
That's the latch.
Uh-huh.
Release the latch. Now, see, this one's not going down quite far enough to let the latch catch.
Which is, when you say down, it's actually up when the lock is assembled and the green cover's on.
All right. Let's do them both, okay? Now, this is the lock reposition button. And it worked that time. So it is. The
Well, I
coil,
have been.
Yeah, the coil that you put in. Here we go.
I have dropped coil into the area and
Right.
been working it by hand, so it could start to
See,
work.
if I do it slow and easy, that one doesn't catch because it doesn't go down far enough. Now watch, if I do it very quickly and hard, it catches. So
It's getting
then-
better because yesterday I couldn't make it do anything.
Exactly.
I oiled it a bit, but then it obviously needed more. So I should keep doing what I'm doing.
You should, and what you need to do is use your LPS1 and spray from the top down in here and underneath there.
Trying to wash out any
Right.
nastiness.
Right.
Okay.
'Cause
And in some instances, that would surely solve the problem. But alas, I worked and I lubricated and I washed. And in this case, that did not completely solve the issue. Here, Jack is indicating all the places that he thinks that I should be squirting LPS into, allowing it to be quite generous so that maybe it will wash out any corrosion or debris. But it didn't succeed entirely.
all right, let's start right here. Look at this screw, and you see it's got red paint on it. This one over here corresponding has got red paint on it. Now, where we're working right now, this one has green paint. And the one on the other side has a little bit of green paint. That is industry standard for these are set properly. And the green is to tell you someone has set them and marked them in the proper position. But that doesn't mean they can't change over time.
Well, looking at it, the green on one side looks fresher and less disturbed than the green on the other side.
And this little plate seems to be at a little bit of an angle. It would be over here if it were directly perpendicular to the line of the bar.
And this one is closer, but the angle's actually opposite, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's almost square. That's what I noticed first. I looked at this one. I said, okay, it's square to the frame here, and this one's at an angle. So since it's right there where that release catch is,
And is not working perfectly.
right, let's see if it needs adjusting. All right, I want to point out this screw. Look at the length of that screw. This is the one that came out of the other side. So you take the outside screw loose, loosen the inside screw, then what you need to do is hold on to this. See how it wiggles around?
Oh, hold on. When you say other side, where exactly did it come from? Because I think you're confusing it. Me.
All right. Look at these screws right here. This one's a silvery color. This one's black.
Right.
And if you look right down onto it, you'll see this is the larger headed screw. This is the short one. This is the long one.
But the one, when you say the other side, you meant
The other
here,
side,
not the other side of the lock.
right? The other side of this bracket.
Okay, got it. Go ahead.
All right, this is the short screw, and like we do everything, loosen it before you take anything out. So now they're both loose and my plate is floating. I want to point out with this other plate, that is the nut plate. This slide area is the nut plate. It's threaded to accept these screws. So now here's what I was saying earlier. Look at that little guy. Not a problem. Now I'm going to start backing this one out. And it's important for me to hold that guide so it doesn't get away. You see it try to. But I'm going to back this out a ways, and you can see
For quite a while
it's
are.
already twice as long as the little guy. So here we go. We're going to take it loose.
Now, does that mean it must be fastened to something else that's not in our view right now?
No, that is one thought. Good thinking. You notice the magnet's holding the plate. Now, here it comes. But what it does is look at these screw marks right here. That means it's the stop for this.
Oh, okay.
That's why it's longer, and that's your telltale mark right there. Every time this piece pops up, see, these two are independent. I can show you on the other side. But every time it pops up, it hits, there's the indication marks on this one, but they're not as pronounced as this one. So for some reason, this is not coming up as far as this side. So that might be what we're looking for.
Okay.
We'll start on this side right here. Notice that this piece is a stop for this mechanism. This is what we were saying earlier. This piece is independent of this piece. But since there's an overlap, this goes down, that goes down, but this will go down by itself. That's why the stop that comes through. So no matter what this one does, this one only goes so high. But here's what we're seeing. This is the stop plate for this side. This is the stop plate for this side. But let me show you what's going on, and we're going to be looking right here. And I suspected this from the beginning. Now I'm going to attempt to back the screw out that would normally let me into that stop plate, but what are we seeing? A lock nut turning.
Oh.
So what my suspicion is the adjustment is this lock nut on the side that's incorrect. I'm going to turn it around. Watch it, Mr. Cameraman. Okay. Because we've been looking at it like this is the bad side. And if that's the case, this is the lock nut that needs adjusting. And my eyeballs tell me that this one is slightly looser than this one. See, I'm seeing a little more screw here than I am here.
I tend to agree.
Okay, so what it means is we got to hold the screw head on the back side and get our little, looks like 8mm socket and back that out.
And am I understanding right that this adjustment might affect the depth to which the part plunges that allows for the lock to occur?
Yes. This is the lock nut that we want to try and adjust this lever with, and let me show you if the camera can get in there. Notice there's a piece right there, and it's preventing the socket from going on. Now watch that piece carefully when I...
Can't see a thing, sweetie. Can you do this
Okay, let me try.
with another hand?
Yeah. All right, we're watching right in here. There's a piece of metal. See the probe on it? Now that piece of metal is out of the way.
So you depressed the left button.
Yes. Is this? Yeah, okay. This one right here, I don't know if it's left or right. It's on my right. It's on your left, but yeah, you're right.
The button by the edge of the machine.
If you were operating the machine, I think this would be facing you. So I think that is correct. All right, now let me see what I can do, and then we'll come back and I'll show you what I'm doing, and then I'll do my experimentation. But what I'm doing is putting a 5.5mm socket on the back side, and I'm going to use my long screwdriver so that when I try to tighten this, the socket is holding the lock nut. And I only did, what, about from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and we'll see how that does.
So we have been steadily adjusting and getting some improvement and cleaning and some improvement, but not enough. It's not reliable, and Jack has a new plan.
See, I'm thinking there's too much slop right here, and in the part that goes that way, you can see there's the rod that has to operate this side and that side. It's got plenty of movement away from that side, but not enough on this side. So what we're going to do is pull these dreaded circlips out and get this off, and then it looks like these screws will let me get this cover off, and we can actually watch the mechanism and see if maybe something's bent a little bit.
Go ahead.
All right, there's the first one off. Be careful of how many and what type of machinery washer goes on each post. If you want to know more about managing these circlips, go look at the garter carriage video. Those are the hardest ones to do.
Well, videos, we did multiple. Right. Here Jack is getting underneath the plate that most of us never see underneath to see what can be adjusted.
Some cruddiness.
Wow.
Tons of cruddiness. Now,
would that be enough to make it a little sluggish?
It would. Now let's put it back and see what that lever is doing. There's the lever.
And with all the cleaning I did, I was unable to get to that, so there it remains.
Right.
I was thinking about it. These are my new locks that go on my old Passap pinkies. The pinkies are old. They were made in the 50s or 60s. But this may have been made in 1980, so it's not exactly a youngster.
Here are the latches. Okay, these are what grab. But this guy is just, I think, a little too cruddy to be slow.
Well, I will clean it.
Because you see how that is.
Yeah, that's
really,
exactly the kind of stuff that we always try to remove. I just had no way to get to it.
This one goes the other way.
Okay, well, back to work with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I cleaned and I cleaned in the way we always do, starting with the cleaning solution, using the least aggressive method possible. For me, that's the toothbrush to start with, moving each moving part to multiple positions so as to make sure of getting all the areas that might be underneath, then moving on to more aggressive tools where they are truly needed. In this case, the dental probe was used and also the brass brush. And clean is always better than dirty. But in the end, we had a clean machine that still had a persistent problem. Some improvement, but the latch still didn't function exactly right. An important little reminder, as you can see, the machine still isn't down to itsy-bitsy parts. Therefore, there are still nooks and crannies. And where I was scaling and removing crud, there's a possibility that some could have slid down into the works, which is definitely not what we want. So part of finishing up is washing out anything that could have occurred, and then you can blot off excess cleaner. It's our hope that the residues and crud that we found under the plate that Jack is now reassembling was enough to make it sluggish and prevent that latch from closing just right. But we won't actually know until he gets it all back together and we can test. And this, in a nutshell, is why this is an advanced mechanical project. Conceptually, it's nothing much to it, but keeping track of all the hardware, getting everything neatly aligned, it's a bit much. Jack does have some tricks. Notice all those little red bottle caps? He sorted the hardware into those. So each batch for each step is in its individual little container. And for him, that's enough to make it clear what order it goes back in. If your mechanical skills are good and you feel up to the project, but you're not sure that's enough sorting for you, he always suggests that people video themselves taking the machine apart. That way you can reverse the steps and you have a clear record. One of the things that gives people the most trouble getting things like this done is those circlips. And there went that one back on, and here comes the second one. I'm trying to get a really good shot for you. There is a lot more detail about circlips in our garter carriage videos. Now we're far enough back together to test it out, and joy of joys, it seems to be working properly now. Some of these things are not easy to keep positioned, even though it's obvious where you want them to be. Here's a little trick that he wanted to share with you. He's holding a magnetic pickup tool that's actually for retrieving dropped hardware, but it's holding a part in place, positioned so that he can screw it back to its proper position.